Hey, welcome to my channel. If you like this video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please comment below. Okay, so first I had Home Depot cut some 3/4 inch finished plywood into 12-inch strips, and now I'm just cutting each piece to length. You could use a table saw or a sliding miter saw to cut these, but I find it's easier with these long skinny boards to cut it using a circular saw. The way I like to do this is just by clamping a straight edge to the board and then using that straight edge as a guide to cut off my piece. And then I'm just going to cut the shelves into the correct width and depth on the table saw. Then I'm going to go ahead and install my dado blade. I'm going to use this to cut slots into the sides of the cabinet. It's going to be for the shelves to sit into and be glued into permanently. You can make this so that all of your shelves are adjustable, but I decided to just do it this way. You can also cut these slots using a router bit, specifically a 3/4 inch router bit. I just find that these dado blades make a little bit cleaner cut and it's a little easier to do. But if you don't have dado blades, like I said, you can definitely use a router bit. And then here I'm cutting a dado on the top so that I can put a top piece on this cabinet. Alright, now just go ahead and get your glue and spread it evenly. And like always, just make sure you get enough glue. You just want to make sure you get good solid contact between all parts of the wood, and then clamp it together. I'm actually going to throw on a few more clamps after I get this upright. But just make sure you wipe out any of the glue squeeze. That way, if you are staining the inside of this, it won't ruin your stain. And then if you're painting it, once again, it will look a little weird if there's glue dried up in the corner that you're going to have to paint over. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue in the shelves. Just same thing, make sure you use a lot of glue, getting good coverage, and then wipe out any excess glue. And then I'm just adding clamps in between each of these drawers. Like I said, once I get this upright, I'm going to be adding a lot more clamps so that I can guarantee that the glue is making good contact with all of the surfaces of the wood. Like I said, I'm going to stand this up and then start adding a bunch of clamps. I bet I used almost every clamp in my workshop. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut out some face frames for this with some extra pine that I had. I set my saw to 1.5 inches. You can buy pre-made 1.5 inch strips, but I had some extra pine, so I decided to do that instead. So you could go ahead and make a face frame for this the traditional way by just making it one piece and then attaching the whole piece to the cabinet, but I just went ahead and cut each piece and attached with brad nails and glue. It was just a small project that I didn't think it was necessary that I needed to just make a huge face frame for it. I think the most important part of this is to just make sure you measure correctly and then use glue and brad nails, and make sure you hold the brad nail the right direction so you don't get any blowout on the outside of the cabinet. Otherwise it's going to look really ugly and you're going to have to sit there and patch it. Alright, and this is how I attach the molding. I like to put it together in one piece, and here I'm using CA glue. It's super glue with an activator, and then just push it together, and then within a couple seconds it will be held together, and just like that, it's all one piece, and then just attach it to the cabinet. And then go ahead and use some wood putty. You can use any wood putty to fill your holes, doesn't matter. I like to use this pink wood putty, that way it tells me when it's dry and I can sand it. I find that using your fingers to apply this wood putty is a lot easier and it goes by a lot faster. I used to use a wood putty knife, but it seemed like it wasted a lot and a lot got on the floor, and you'd pick it up with your fingers anyway and then try to put it back on the knife. Couple reasons why I like this pink putty is because it doesn't crack at all. Seems to be pretty strong, and it turns from pink to the color of your wood when it's completely dry. That way you know it's ready to sand. And then just make sure you run your sander over the whole thing, anything that's going to be painted. I used 120 grit and then 150 grit. Just make sure you sand everything nice and smooth. If you're going to be staining it, you are going to want to sand down to at least 220 grit. And then I went ahead and sanded the molding by hand. Just because it has a lot of curved pieces, you're not going to want to get your orbital sander or any other kind of electric sander in there. It'll definitely ruin that molding. And then once you get everything sanded, it's going to be ready for paint. You can either spray it or paint it by hand. For this project, I decided to use a brush and a roller and some oil-based paint. I like oil-based paint because it tends to sit a lot flatter, but you can do whatever you want. And then here's the result. I didn't paint the inside of the boxes, but you can. I liked that finished plywood look. You could stop here if you wanted, but I decided I wanted to make a door for this. So that's what's next. I made the door panel out of MDF and then used my table saw to make the raised panel look, give it a nice scoop or curved profile. I do have a video that I'll link above that shows this process in detail of how to make raised panel doors on just your table saw. So if you're interested, check that out. And then go ahead and cut your rails and stiles to size. I use 2.5 inch select pine from Home Depot. Then if you are making your own door, you're going to need these router bits. Just make sure you install the bit on your right first to cut the ends of your stiles, and then use the one on your left to cut everything else. So like I said, you're going to cut the ends of your stiles first. And then you're going to go ahead and cut your rails using the other bit. And then you're going to go ahead and cut one side of each of your stiles. Just make sure they're oriented correctly, facing the right way. And then go ahead and glue everything together. A lot of people will have those panels floating in between the rails and the stiles and not glued in. However, I like to glue it in. It just depends on where you live. If you have a lot of expansion and contraction with wood where you live because of high humidity or changes in humidity, then you're probably not going to want to glue that in. It's just a personal preference. Whatever you want to do, it's your judgment call. However, I will say that when you're gluing the stiles and rails together, that you use a lot of glue. Make sure you spread it everywhere, spread it evenly, and then make sure you clamp it nice and tight. And when you're assembling this, it can be difficult because the pieces can be really tight, so just get a rubber mallet and pound it in, and then when you're all done, just make sure you clamp it nice and tight and make sure everything's square. And just like the box, you're going to want to sand and paint the door. And this is what it looks like all installed. Me and my wife are very happy with how it turned out. But hey, if you liked this video, please give it the thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my content, please subscribe. And then if you have any questions, please comment below. Thanks for watching.